Hello, my name is Mary Manning, Assistant Commissioner with the Minnesota Department of Health. As you know, the death of George Floyd continues to cause many of us anger, fear, and grief. With the trial of Derek Chauvin starting today and continuing for several weeks, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the significance of this event for many of us in the MDH family and the MDH community. Many of us are experiencing additional trauma and stress from the media coverage and the unknown outcome of the trial itself. It is important at this time that we take care to be respectful and kind to one another and to take a moment to try to understand each other's perspective. As a public health agency, this is core to our work. As colleagues, we owe this to each other. It is important also to gather and hold conversations with each other in a way to support one another and protect each other's well-being in the context of this trauma. That is why I am so glad that we can be together today, and I'm honored to introduce to you our distinguished expert today. Resmaa Menakem is a social worker and a somatic experiencing professional. The New York Times bestselling author of My Grandmother's Hands, Radicalized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies. He is also the founder of the Justice Leadership Solutions, which coaches leaders through civil unrest, organizational change, and community building. He created the concept of Cultural Somatics, which utilizes the body and the resilience as mechanisms for growth. He is also an MDH Psychological First Aid trainer. Please join me in welcoming him, and thank you for being an important part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to say thank you to MDH for allowing me to come and talk. We kind of pulled this together pretty quickly. So I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to acknowledge and thank a lot of the community members that are on this call and are trying to figure out, like, how do we begin to deal with some of the stuff that is happening to our communities? How do we begin to work with a lot of the pain that we're seeing and that gets stirred up when things like this occur? And so it is my hope for the time that we're together that I present some things. Some things are going to be uncomfortable. One of the things that happens when we do this work is that we are so interested in being comfortable that nothing shifts and nothing changes. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing over the next hour that we're together is leaning into the uncomfortableness of this moment and this time, and then beginning to figure out if there's some ways to work with it to see if we can bring about either some healing or some change or some relief from what we've been experiencing. So, hey, Mary, you're still on. I'm not sure if you know you're still on. So I wanted to just introduce everybody and say that for those of us who have been struggling with and dealing with the weight of these moments, dealing with the trauma of these moments year after year after year after year, the first thing that I want to say to you is that you are not defective. There's nothing wrong with you. You haven't done anything wrong. This stuff is weathering to our bodies. It is weathering to us. And so the weight that you've been experiencing as a buildup to what's happening today, the things that we've been experiencing is not just us individually. It happened to us, and has happened to many of our peoples. It happened to indigenous people. and continues to happen. Happened to Black people and continues to happen. Happened to Latinx people and continues to happen. Happened to Asian people and continues to happen. These things are not episodic. They're structural. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Many times when I do this workshop, it's usually between 8 hours long. And so we're going to try and get a lot of things in within a 1 hour context. We're going to open it up at some point too and do some question and answer. Marty will bring people up and after I present a little bit, and then we can have some dialogue about either application or how we begin to work with some of this. So the first thing I want to do is I want everybody just to breathe for a second. So I want you to just breathe, and I want you to just sit. And I want you to look around the room, and I want you to find the exits and the windows. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to elicit activation in your bodies. And so what I want you to do first is just breathe and look for ways to leave where you're at, to leave the room, whether that be through a window or through a door. Look behind you, look around, and then just notice yourself in the room. And breathe. I'm going to ask that you, as we go through this hour, I'm going to ask that you pay attention to what your body is telling you. I'm going to ask that you pay attention to what's going on in your body. And it's going, and it'll all make sense as we move through it. But first, beginning to orient to the room that you're in and orient to the fact that you can leave. For some of our people, we come from the people where we couldn't leave. And if we left, there was horror and terror and carnage and death. And so letting your body know that there's nothing behind it and that you can leave and you can move is an important quality in terms of some of the things that we're going to be talking about in terms of cultural somatics. So that's the first thing. Now notice as we begin to get into the content of this, notice how your body shifts and changes. Notice if something moves, if something locks down, if something wants to push. You know, just the idea that our feet right now is on indigenous land. And something has happened and continues to happen to our indigenous brothers and sisters. As you hear me say that, notice what your body does. Notice if there's an opening or a closing, a pushing or a thwarting. This is some of the embodied context that we're talking about when we talk about trauma, when we talk about what happens to people, when we talk about how those things that happen to people become decontextualized and people don't really understand what the weight is about or what the rhythm is about or what the texture is about. They think it's individual. What happened to indigenous people happened to indigenous people not individually and continues to happen, but communally. So we have to develop communal ways of healing and communal ways of moving through this. What happened to Black people and continues to happen to Black people did not happen to Black people individually. It happened communally. And so therefore we must develop ways of healing in community and develop and put resources towards that healing. So as you hear me say that, notice what's happening to your body as you hear me saying the things that I'm saying, as you're listening to my cadence, as you're listening to the tone in my voice. What's happening to your body? Notice when you see this. Not sure what's going on. What happens to your body? This is one of the reasons why we're here today. Is that this image is infused into our brain, was seared into our brain. This image with sound was seared into our brain. There is no image. We don't see an image. Marty, can you help me out here?
I see an image of a police officer.
Yeah. So some people do. So some now it's coming through. Are people seeing the image now? Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So this image has been seared into our brain. The image of Chauvin. The image does not, for those who can't see it, the image does not have Brother Floyd. It's just Chauvin. Notice what's happening to your body. The idea that this was, in some ways, sanctioned. In some ways, the brutality of it is not episodic. We look at these types of things that happen all over the nation, all over the world as it relates to Black bodies. And we want, every time it happens, we have this kind of shock, episodic sense about it. Oh, there it goes again. And what that does is does not allow us to actually understand or create methods for dealing with it because we think it's episodic rather than structural. The trial that we are starting on has energy to it. It means something. People have been terrorized by police. And if we can't bring that to bear, anything that we do to begin to address it will be minor. It'll be tweaks. And so what we're saying is that in this moment, in this time, we are taking this seriously. We're going to do something about it. Not just in terms of the courts, but we're going to actually say that when this type of stuff happens, it damages not just the person who lost their life, not just their family, but it damages the communities that these people come from, that our people come from, because it weathers our nervous system. What happened to Brother Floyd was traumatizing. White supremacy, white body supremacy is trauma itself. And we must begin to develop ways of managing and dealing with that trauma communally and individually. Notice what your body is doing. Notice the move to reject what I'm saying. Notice the move to want me to stop. Notice the move to embrace it. Oh. When we're talking about what has happened and what continues to happen to bodies of culture in this country, in this structure, one of the first things we have to understand is that this stuff happens at so many levels, all at the same time. This court case is not Brother Floyd's trial. This is a trial for somebody who murdered somebody. And what we're trying to do is create an environment. So as we all go through this, the people that need to be taken care of, the people that are having difficulty with it, the people that are here can move through this, not get rid of it, not cure it, not heal it, but allow us to move through this in a way by which we can take care of each other. But if we don't understand that there is an impact, that these other things are also impacting that, that's why the weight of it feels so heavy. That's why you're not sleeping like you used to. That's why you're eating differently. That's why you're being impacted not only by COVID-19, but also this and this brutality. And every time we see it, we are impacted by this. These are the things that are operating in the background when we see what happened to Brother Floyd, when we see what Chauvin did. When we see those types of things, these are the things that are impacting that. And the reason why we're doing what we're doing is that we need to contextualize it. So when people start to show trauma responses, we don't make it about some defect in them. When they start to show trauma responses, we help them remember it. When they start to show trauma responses a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and they start to struggle with some depression because their bodies are remembering this, either the court case, either what happened, whether there was a just verdict, or what actually happened on that day. When people start to experience this, we put it into context, and we help people with it, and we help people remember it so they don't put the defect in themselves individually. That's what we're trying to do. So we get people to understand that this stuff is operating in the background. It is not because of some personal defect that they're experiencing something a year from now, 2 years from now, or right now they're starting to experience some depression or anxiety. We put it in the context of racialized trauma and white body supremacy trauma. And not to do so makes people hurt more. Not to do so makes people think that they're defective. And part of the reason why we're doing what we're doing is to make sure that in these communities that we begin to say to a brother or a sister that are struggling with either their own personal stuff because this stuff activated it, or the historical stuff that never got dealt with, that we tend to that and stop putting the onus on the individual person, but actually developing a communal healing response, as opposed to saying, well, there must be something wrong with that person, as opposed to what happens and continues to happen. The systemic weathering and taxation on the Black, Indigenous, poor, and Asian bodies, it goes without redress. And what we're trying to do today is beginning to address it and put context to it. Basics of trauma. Trauma is personal, particular and personal, and is influenced by the biophysiology and psychology of the person. It's the body's response to real or perceived inescapable overwhelm. It is not a personal. It is the Greek word for wound. We are literally talking about wounding and wounds that have gone unaddressed for 400 years for some of us, 500 years for some of us. And what happens is that things like what Chauvin did reopens those wounds. And because we haven't contextualized it, when we start to experience it, people think that there's something wrong with them. And we have to stop that now. It is not a personal failure when people are struggling with this, the court case, when people are struggling to what happened, to what they saw, and what has happened for 400 and 500 years for some of us. are we going to take this seriously? Are we going to put the funds and the resources available to take the trauma that people are experiencing seriously? Or are we just going to act like it's another episode and forget about it? Sister Breonna was not an episode. Brother Floyd is not an episode. Emmett Till was not an episode. It is structural, and it is wounding, and we are grieving. The body reacts even when the mind knows it's not necessary. It moves to protect you. That's the focus, even when it knows it's not necessary. And we can get stuck in that place, and that goes unaddressed year after year after year after year. People in communities are not defective. Something happened and continues to happen. And then we take that grief out on each other, horizontally take it out on each other. And then white body supremacy and white supremacy never gets addressed. And we get shocked every time something happens. The body informs the brain, and the body remembers. Our bodies remember this. And so when these anniversaries start to come up again, we think something is wrong with us when we're not sleeping, when we're not eating, when we're dealing with depression, when we're dealing with anxiety. We think that it's the individual thing, and it is not. Are we going to take it seriously this time? If something is hysterical, it is usually historical. And by hysterical, I mean that there's more energy that's showing up in that particular time than there should be. Or there's not enough energy. When that happens, you're probably dealing with historical stuff. Are we going to take it seriously when we see it? When we see people responding out of their pain, out of their hurt that has gone unaddressed for hundreds of years, are we going to take it seriously? Trauma is about stuckness. It's about stuckness in thought, stuckness in vibration, stuckness in meaning making, stuckness in ideas, stuckness in feelings, stuckness in sensation. Because in the stuckness is a way to protect myself from what could potentially happen. I may not be able to thrive, but at least I can monitor and modulate the amount of horror and terror that happens to me and my communities. Are we going to take that seriously? We have an opportunity to take it seriously. Are we going to do it? Trauma is what happens inside of you when what happens happened. It's the shift that occurs. It's the move that occurs to protect you from further overwhelm or further damage, whether it's perceived or real. Are we going to now take this seriously? Trauma is anything that happens to you, that happens too much, too fast, too long. Anything that happens too much, too fast, too long, or too soon. That's all it takes to be traumatized. That's all it takes. Coupled with not enough of something reparative. And so, when we start to begin to see particular people in our communities begin to exhibit signs of not only stress, not only anxiety, not only depression, but stuckness. When we start to see that, what you're watching is unredressed, reparative ways of dealing with it. We haven't developed a structure of repair. We haven't developed a structure. We've developed little groups over here, little things over here, little workshops over there, but not a structure to address the structural impact of white body supremacy and feral policing. We have not done that. And so people keep getting traumatized, and their trauma compounds, and their trauma gets passed down and passed down and passed down. Are we going to address it? That's the question. And so when people deal with trauma, like what continues to happen to Black and brown and indigenous people, one of the things that happens is that there is the trauma that the person experiences, but then there's the trauma that happens to people around them. So people can experience vicarious trauma. Vicarious trauma is trauma you experience from watching somebody go through trauma, or experiencing a nervous system of somebody that has been through trauma. You can be traumatized by that. And we're watching family members, community members be traumatized by police brutality, by the prison industrial complex, by economic racism and white supremacy. And people are experiencing that, and we are experiencing trauma from the people that are experiencing that. That's vicarious trauma. Secondary trauma is the trauma you get from trying to render aid to somebody who is traumatized. So it is not just a traumatized person that we're talking about in terms of our communities. It is also the trauma that ripples out. So when we're talking about the Chauvin trial, we're not just talking about one type of trauma, the trauma that happened to a particular person. We're talking about how that ripples out throughout the community. Are we going to take this seriously now? Or are we going to just put Band-Aids on it and try and act like it's another episode that we need to wait to just settle down some? Are we going to start thinking about a 10 to 20-year plan for addressing historical, intergenerational, persistent institutional, and people's personal traumas as it relates to white body supremacy, racialization, and racism? Not a one-year plan, not a two-year plan, a 10 to 20-year healing plan that puts resources in place so our communities can begin to heal from the ongoing and persistent effects of white supremacy and racism. Not to do so keeps us complicit with white supremacy, complicit with trauma. It is not enough to be trauma informed. We have to also be trauma responsive. And to do so means that not to do so means that we're all right with the carnage that is happening. The trauma that we're seeing in our communities, both horizontally and across time, the trauma that we're seeing is because things have been unaddressed for so long. When we watch Brother Floyd get murdered like that, one of the things that we see is a whipping up of energy. And we're wondering why so much energy? And that's because the historical trauma has never been addressed. And it's been decontextualized. And people then take that unaddressed trauma and they turn it in on themselves. And they think something is wrong with them because they can't really put a language to what they're experiencing. The unaddressed intergenerational trauma that gets passed down from the unaddressed historical trauma. The persistent and pervasive institutional trauma that continues to happen, that continues to wound, that continues to weather, that continues to take literal years off of Black, Indigenous, and brown people's lives. And then we deal with adverse adulthood experiences and adverse childhood experiences. historical, intergenerational, persistent institutional, and our own personal traumas all galvanized together. And so therefore we can't discern what from what. And then we internalize it and take it out on ourselves, or internalize it and take it out on people that look like ourselves. And we never redress the white body supremacy operating like an operating system in the background. Are we going to take it seriously this time? One of the things that we can begin to do is utilize cultural somatic skills. And that is what we started off doing at the beginning. Pause. Notice what your body is experiencing right now. Notice the tightness. Notice the protective responses. Every time you hear me say white supremacy, every time you hear me say white body supremacy or racism, notice how tight. Race has a 400- and 500-year-old charge to it. But yet we're going to try and deal with it by just talking about it. We haven't created a culture that can actually hold race. White comfort trumps black liberation. White comfort trumps indigenous sovereignty. White comfort trumps Latinx children being put into cages. Are we going to take it seriously? We have to develop practices around self and communal grounding. So when this stuff pops up, we already have an infrastructure in place that can begin to promote these pieces. Self and communal orientation. Because some of us have not been allowed to heal from the trauma and the horror and the terror that our ancestors have dealt with and had to override in order to survive. Self and communal touch, self and communal movement. These are skills that now we have an opportunity to figure out, are we going to put the resources together so these things can be cultivated? So as these structural brutalities continue to happen, we actually develop a culture that can begin to heal it. We have not done that. These are the 4 cultural somatic skills. These are the 4 psychological first aid. And we have people on this call right now, that community members that are listening to me, you can reach out to some of these people and they can come and help you. They can come and help train you in some of these pieces. So you have these skills available. So as these things continue to happen, as Black and brown and indigenous people continue to be brutalized and murdered on film, we have ways of redress and addressing these pieces in communities. So there are people on the call right now, and after we get off, I want people to be taking pictures of these slides. This recording will be available to you. So you can reach out, so you can begin to have people that can come and talk to you about psychological first aid as a floor to help your communities begin to deal with some, not cure, not heal, but a floor so the healing can begin to emerge. 4 skills of psychological first aid is to promote safety, to calm and comfort, to foster connectedness and self-empowerment. Promoting safety involves safeguarding and sustaining, meet basic survival needs, provide simple and accurate information. This is very important. Many of our communities have trusted news sources within those communities. And so, but when things like this happen, many of us get our news sources from untrusted news sources. How do we begin to develop an infrastructure that can begin to promote those trusted news sources within those communities so we get accurate information on what's going on and we can be healed through that information, through some of that information? We don't have that. How do we begin to develop that? How do we begin to develop those trusted sources in a way that when something happens, people know where to go to get the accurate information, both online and in person, both online and through the grapevine. If we are talking about structure and not episodes, we must begin to build that now. Repeat information as often as needed. Identify resources. In calm and comfort, facilitate. What is that? I think it's, well, my PowerPoint is acting funny. Have a compassionate presence with people when we're talking about calming and comfort. Active listening. Don't push for information. Use stress management techniques. Be flexible and supportive. We can all do it. Most of us can do these skills. The trainers of psychological first aid can help you and your communities begin to work with that. In terms of the cultural somatic skills, I can begin to help you with some of those pieces. Comfort, console, and soothe. As a way to foster connectedness, help connect friends and loved ones with each other. Promote it, not only in person, but online, especially during this time of COVID. People are very isolated. These types of, this court case can exacerbate that isolation. We want to reach out. Check on your strong friends. Check on those people that, oh, they're doing good. Check on them. Keep children with relatives. Ask questions. Make referrals as needed. In terms of self-empowerment, action and educate. Clarify disaster information. The Chauvin trial, what happened to Brother Floyd, what happened to Sister Breonna, that is a disaster in our communities. Disaster is not just about tornadoes or floods. Every time we watch a black body or indigenous body get murdered, every time we see that, every time, that is a disaster. Do we have an infrastructure that can redress and address that? If we don't, we have to build it. Engage towards meeting own needs, guide towards what is expected, and teach resilience. These are some of the pieces when we're talking about psychological first aid. Many of our communities already do it. Now, how do we put something in place that can actually utilize these pieces in a structural way as opposed to episodes? Help people work towards, quote unquote, developing and returning to normal life activities. Promoting not exercise to get stronger, but exercise to begin to metabolize the energy, both the historical, the intergenerational, the persistent institutional, and our own personal stuckness and trauma. How can we utilize movement and exercise and different things, both communally and together, to help us work with some of the stuff? Overall, people want to be heard. How do we foster that? Are we going to take this time seriously so we stop the carnage from being decontextualized and having communities of people internalize these pieces as something being defective in them when it is not? This is structural. There are prevention strategies. Share your thoughts. If you're going to begin to engage with people, here are some of the things you must do if you're going to aid people. Share thoughts with people you trust. Keep active, regular exercise. Eat properly, balanced diet. Avoid high processed sugars. There are many of us that have been doing this work for so long and giving of ourselves to communities, and we burn out and we can't do it, and we start to become depressed, and we experience a vicarious and secondary trauma, and that goes unaddressed. That is a taxation. That is a weathering on the nervous system. This is what I call racial battle fatigue, from dealing with this day in and day out, not just with other people, but our own stuff. Are we going to take that seriously when we're asking people to support the community, but we haven't developed a structure that can support it? The resources are not available to support it. We have to do that. Avoid tobacco, alcohol, and illegal drugs, which can mask the stress. Look for humor in situations wherever possible, when you can, with each other. Help others as one can and don't have an agenda. Maintain regular routine with uninterrupted sleep cycles, and then learn to use coping techniques, including breathing, relaxation, and muscle relaxation. Look at life's daily challenges as opportunities. We want to promote self-care. Check on yourself whether or not you can actually render aid to people in community, or you need to tag off. Understand the nature of what's being asked of you if you're going to give aid to the community as we move through this Chauvin trial, as stuff starts to pop up. Give consideration to your physical and emotional health. Use support resources during the time to respond. Promote your own resiliency. Expect recovery period after you render aid to people in our communities. Whether that is in your community or in your family, there is a recovery period. Talk about your experiences, and when in doubt, consult with either supervisors or local resources. There are people online right now through the Minnesota Department of Health that can help with some of these trainings. Take advantage of them. I will put up a slide in a few seconds where I'm taking pictures of this, and then I will put up a slide in a few seconds where you can access some of those resources. So I adapted this from the incident command structure, and I believe that these are some of the things that if you're going to develop an infrastructure for this, this might be a really simple little thing that each community can begin to do and utilize. The incident command means that it means that not if something is going to happen. We say it is going to happen, and we want to be prepared to be able to have the proper things in place to begin to work on that. Psychological first aid can help with developing some of this, but I did some other pieces because I was talking about not just incident command, but communal incident command. How do we begin to develop a strategy or an infrastructure in each of these communities that regular people can begin to learn and do these skills? Take a picture of this. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying this is an idea. Reach out, have somebody help to train you, and then adapt it to what you need. Here's some resources. The Recast Department of the City of Minneapolis has some videos on joy and trauma response. How can you respond to trauma in your communities, with each other? What are things that you need to be looking at? These are very good videos. I encourage you to reach out, download these videos, take a picture of this right now, and you'll be able to have access to this. The Department of Health will make this presentation available to people, so even if you don't take pictures, these things will be available. The Minnesota Department of Psychological First Aid has videos. These are some videos that you can begin to watch that can help you with what you want to structure in order to put something in place for your community. One of the things that I've been saying is this. We have to create context. So when people are struggling now, we can put these things in context. I think, one of the things that we need to start having in some of our communities are what I call wailing spaces. Sometimes when people are when something happens in the personal realm or in the present realm, it activates stuff that's happening in the historical realm, meaning that there's a lot of grief in our people that's never been dealt with. And I'm not just talking about personal grief. I'm talking about communal grief. Places where people can go and just be and rock and with other community members, and not to cure, not to save, not to do none of that, but just allow the process to move forward so people can wail and cry and shake and be with somebody that is going to be there with them and protect them and hold them through it. Here's some heal and racialized trauma resources. Take pictures. Self-care and wellness resources. Some people are saying that they can't see anything. I'm not sure if that's the setting. And then some people are saying that they can see it. So this recording will be available. So even if you can't see it, hopefully if you see the recording, it'll show up on the recording. If not, reach out after this, and then we can figure out what's going on. I'm not sure why some people are not able to see it. Oh, because some people have called in. Okay. All right. So we'll make this available for people. The recording will be available, so you'll see some of the things that we're talking about. Here's some mental health and crisis support lines. If somebody is dealing with something acute or severe, these might be some things that can help. NAMI is very good. I do a lot of work with NAMI. So please reach out to them. And now we're going to open up. Now I know I threw a lot at you. Notice what your body is experiencing right now. Now imagine being stuck in that place. That's what communities are dealing with right now. So I want to open this up to questions, see if people have questions, and then go from there. So Marty.
If you have a question and you want to say it out loud, use the raise hand button in chat. I know if you called in, we're not going to be able to do that, but everyone else, you can use the raise hand button in chat, or you can type into the question or chat box and we will read that question out loud for you.
Thank you, Marty. Somebody else just said that they can't see the stuff and they didn't call in. So we'll just have to work out the technical stuff. Lily Rogers Grant has a hand raised.
I'm scrolling through the list of people to find the raised hand.
Somebody said I had to exit full screen in order to see everything.
So,
okay, good.
Unmute Julia Ross. I'm unmuting you. You can ask your first question.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I put a question in the chat too, because I know you guys were having issues. I'm wondering how much, if any, work you do with law enforcement agencies to educate officers on a historical trauma, since oftentimes they're the first ones to see what's going on when they arrive at a scene or whatever, and so I just think that would be a great tool.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm not. My focus right now is not. I've worked with the police in the past. My focus right now hasn't been on them because it is a whole. Like I said, this is structural and it's very difficult when you're working with a structure that doesn't see that it has an issue. And so right now, I haven't recently been doing it, but I have in the past.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If there are any bodies of culture that are on, I'd like to get some some calls or some people. So show your face so we can see. I'd like to get some questions from you.
Lily Rogers Grant, I'm unmuting you.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lily, and this has been a really, really wonderful talk. I identify as Chinese American. I'm also an international or transnational adoptee. So I have an interesting relationship with identity and race, particularly in America. And one thing I really wanted to ask that has been weighing on me is sort of the rise in hate crime and violence towards Asians and Asian Americans in America right now, post, probably related to COVID and other things like that. And one thing I've struggled with is sort of in my own community, in my own circles, is the lack of support and media attention that these communities and myself are getting, really. And I've been, frankly, pretty hurt that some of my friends haven't reached out. And I was just wondering, I don't know if this is a fully formed question, but I was just wondering, sort of, as you move through community, as you have, inevitable events come up that are traumatic, I mean, how should we be responding? How should we, what should we, I don't know if I feel guilty, I guess, for expecting something, and I've just been really struggling with it, and I thought maybe you had some insight.
Good. Well, so one of the things that when we talk about the vertical violence that has been heaped in this country as it relates to the hierarchy of race and racism in this country, that's what I was saying earlier. There are things that go unaddressed and have been unaddressed. So there's such a charge to the idea of race in this country. And the only way we're going to begin to deal with that is that we actually get together with each other. I'm not talking about kumbaya stuff. I'm saying that the people within cultural groups have to begin to get together and begin to talk about the impact of both intra and intercultural, the impact of white supremacy and white body supremacy on our notions of identity, on our notions of who is human or not human, who is more human or not human, who is the role of indigenous invisibility in the structure, the role of anti-blackness in the structure, the role of model minority in the structure. Those things we haven't examined communally, and how it's all tied into white body supremacy. So my thing is, we have to begin to slow down and begin to look at this, not as, that's what I keep saying, not as episodes or just this one piece over here and it's not connected to these pieces over here. I think we have to begin to slow this down and examine and interrogate these pieces, not interrogate people and not interrogate communities, but interrogate the structure that has us pitted against each other in ways. And now I'm not talking, like I said, I'm not talking about kumbaya. I'm not saying, well, we just need to talk and stuff like that. I'm saying there's some real pain tied up in these pieces, and we need time to slow it down so we can unhook it and discern what from what.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was a question in the chat,
okay.
or more of a comment saying, I feel obliged to share that as a Jewish woman, I have often felt the vicarious trauma. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors who've experienced much anti-Semitism, and I feel that sometimes this is not recognized because I am white. Trust me, I've also experienced a lot of hate.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, you're right. I think that when we talk about historical trauma, Jewish people have experienced historical trauma, absolutely. But a black Jewish person's experience is different than a white Jewish person's experience. they're not the same experience, even though they both are of the same religious background. A Black Jewish person, and that's the piece that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the idea of racialization's impact on religion, racialization's impact on economics, racialization's impact on identity, racialization's impact on sexual orientation, racialization's impact on all these things. I'm not saying that the trauma that Jewish people have experienced and continue to experience is not real. It absolutely is real. It absolutely is important, and it absolutely needs to be addressed. And I'm not talking about that piece of it right now. I'm talking about this piece. And so I think that must be, so it's a both and, not an either or. Brother Cam, I see you. Can we bring Brother Cam up? C-A-M.
Oh, okay. It does not have a raised hand, but
Yeah, but let's bring him.
there, Cam is unmuted.
Hey, brother.
Hey, how you doing?
Not too bad.
First of all, I want to say thank you for just your work and just being able to be available for our community. And another thing I just wanted to say is I really appreciate how you were encouraging us to take pictures of the screens at the end of the presentation, because that kind of is where my head is at right now in terms of supporting our neighbors, supporting ourselves, and just what that could look like, and also in my professional life also, in terms of supporting students in schools and school staff. You know, so I really appreciate that, and really that's all I got. I mean, and I love the language that you use in terms of making distinctions. You know, like in terms of like all of the different categories, almost like your graphic, the circle graphic. Where, you know, there's so much being impacted by white body supremacy and all of the intersections of identities and intersections of things that affect our lives, like whether or not we're talking about, you know, the criminal justice system, or whether or not we're talking about economic, whether or not we're talking about housing, access to healthcare, you know, all of these intersections. And I think that the more that we elevate some of the intersections, I think, as we continue to have healthy dialogue around all of these issues, I think that's going to be helpful also. So I just really appreciate you for doing this. I really appreciate MDH for hosting it. I appreciate my neighbor Lucia, who's shouted this out so that people from my neighborhood could actually show up and come. So
it's beautiful.
So thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you. It's good to see your face too, brother. All right. Do we have anybody else, Marty?
Yes, we have two more people right now that I see. Next is Jancy.
Hey. Hey, sis. Peace and blessing.
You can hear my little daughter having some.
That's beautiful too.
Yeah, I really appreciate this session that you're doing and the challenge of bringing it down to 1 hour.
Yeah.
Something that actually takes so much time, I think, and is a daily thing. Actually, you know, it's a lifelong kind of journey and practice. Because even I in this session was like, do the white people understand?
Come on with it.
Not just the white people, but do people that are not Black understand? And then when people want to bring up their own traumas of their own races, you so lovingly heard and responded to that. And you said, I'm not talking about that right now. But if you were, Brother Resmaa, no one would interrupt you with somebody else's struggle. If you were talking about another race and their struggle, no one would stop you.
No yeah buts. There would be no yeah buts.
What about this one?
Yeah.
No one would say, what about this one? They would allow you to talk about that particular struggle and to give and to enlighten and educate them on something that you had taken time to study, work with, recognize, hold, move with, move through, all these kinds of things. Even I am like, are they comfortable enough? Even I will set aside my own comfortability and my own learning and my own journey, because I'm seeing that your eye is so wide, and okay, you're not talking to us, you're talking to everyone. So then I'm like, will they hear you?
No.
Will they learn?
No. No.
Will they understand?
No.
Will they? And I keep wondering, and I'm wondering that instead of thinking about what is here for me in this time.
Yeah.
How will I be held? How will I be seen? How will I, you know, what am I grabbing from these things? I'm not looking for what to give and honor myself, you know, and put in my own bag. To, like, how will I make it through this time? Does he have something for me? I'm not even sometimes thinking of that. I'm thinking of the other people there.
That's right.
And setting aside my own. So I really appreciate that you're continuing to do this work, even when it is hard, and even when people are trying to sidetrack you, or, you know, see if there's something else that they can talk about, rather than just being present with this. So I just wanted to honor you and respect you.
It's so good. It's so good. It is so good for me to see your face. It's so good for me to see your face. And you are absolutely right. This is why I keep saying no when you ask that question. Are they going to get it? Is because a 1-hour workshop don't help people get it. That's why I keep saying this is structural. This is not strategic. Right? This is about, are people going to commit to the next 10, 20, 30 years to usher in a living, embodied, anti-racist culture, not a strategy, a culture. So
and we have to do it in every one.
That's right.
In each and every one. And that's what I appreciate so much about you. Thank you for continuing to help us be seen by one another and ourselves in our own mirror. You know, I just appreciate you so much. You've helped me so much on the journey, and I just love partnering with you and working with you too. And there's more to come.
More to come.
I love that 1% on my phone, but you know, 1,000% inside, you know, or whatever.
Love you, sis.
Oh, love you so much. Peace and all.
All right. So we got time for one more person.
The next one that had their hand up was Rich.
Okay. Hey, Rich.
Hey, Resmaa, how are you today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. First off, I got to say that I'm getting over just the, excuse me, but fanboy.
We good. I'm a fan of yours too, brother.
I literally just read your book, My Grandmother's Hands, probably about a week and a half or so ago. So a lot of this is still fresh in my mind, and I'm getting over the way the universe just kind of, I don't know, aligned at, oh my goodness, he's talking today. You know, so I had a bunch of questions, and now my mind is a complete blank and whatnot.
It's all right, brother.
But ultimately, I have my own breathing practice that I do, and I use some of the techniques from your book. And just as you were presenting, I was just going through that. And yeah, I would say that just a little, you know, and I might be putting out a gamble there just saying this, but last year, the events of last year really opened something up in me to the point that it was just like all the things you were saying, depression and just feeling just overwhelmed. For so long, I kind of pushed myself away from that, but I said, no, you're no different. We're all connected.
Yeah, that's it.
And it has influenced my desire to want to look back into working in mental health. And I feel that I can learn so much from you, from just, the words are escaping me right now. The energy's there, though. I mean, and I just wanted to just acknowledge, thank you so much for this book. It's been, I found it by accident, if you will. You know, I was just looking for, you know, books by, you know, Black therapists, and, you know, just to kind of say, okay, what, and I just happened to come across, and it spoke to me, just the cover art, and I just started, And I just went through it like, oh my goodness, I need more. I need to learn more. I need to, so I could be a service to other folks.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I don't have much else, but
that's all right, brother. Go back through the book again. This time, slow it down. Slow it down. There's people who work with me go through that book like 8, 9 times, right? And just slow it down. Each time you go through it, brother, there'll be something else, and you'll be like, "Oh, was this it? Did somebody else write in this book?" Right? Just slow it down, and brother, I guarantee me and you will hook up in some type of way. So just let's keep moving. The ancestors know what they're doing, brother. Let's just keep moving.
Agreed.
Right?
Thank you so much.
All right, brother. All right. So y'all done wasted a little bit of time with me. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Nancy, this will be made available for people, correct?
Yes, it will.
Okay, good. If there's any, if people want to learn more about psychological first aid, I really encourage you to reach out to Nancy Carlson. If you want to learn how to adapt it, if you want to know more about cultural somatics and workshops, I would encourage you to go to Resmaa, resmaa.com. Also, if you want to try and get there, if you go to the little Wiser app that was in the upper right-hand corner, that Wiser app will take you to the book, and you can use that to as you go along with the book. You can use that, and it'll also take you to some of the social medias and where you can access me and stuff like that. So I'm glad y'all spent this time with me. Love you. Let's keep trying to work it, but I want to make sure you're left with this. We're not going to get out of this by dealing with this as an episode. We have to begin to deal and create structure, a living, embodied, anti-racist structure. It does not exist, and we're going to have to usher it in. Black people, brown people, bodies of culture, you are not defective. I love you. I'll see you soon. Ashe.
Thank you so much, Resmaa.
You're very welcome.
We do have a couple questions in chat left. Would you mind if I just send them to you?
Yeah, just send them. If I can, okay. I'll try and get to them, but I'm going on vacation, so if
you better enjoy that.
I get to them. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Res. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch later, okay?
Okay.
Have a good vacation.
Yeah,
Bye.
I'm going to try to. Bye-bye.
Thank you for everybody who attended. I am going to be ending the recording, and we will be sending out something to everybody who registered, and the people who weren't able to register, with the link to the recording and also some of the resources, links to the resources that were recommended.